All right, everyone, the palpable corruption of the current political climate continues. There was an NBC town hall the other day, and it was billed as being an undecided voter town hall, and with Biden there. Basically, people immediately afterward were calling it an infomercial for Joe Biden, which makes sense considering it's on NBC. These people have colluded directly with the DNC in the past. Do you think maybe they still might be? You remember the emails from the Hillary camp and the DNC in the 2016 election? NBC, I believe, was among the list of the outlets that were conferred with directly. They even had a little list where they were talking about like pundits that were explicitly like, kind of sort of behind the scenes had basically endorsed Hillary Clinton. I think there were some from NBC there. But anyway, oops. It turns out that this town hall wasn't conducted of undecided voters. They were all people from an MSNBC panel, actually, not long prior, that were all pledged Biden voters. So it was a softball pile of bullshit. Now, these sorts of things, normally, in a normal election, would matter. But if people aren't actually told what's going on, because the legacy media, the fix is in, they're all 100% for Joe Blow Biden, they're just not going to report on it. You think that NBC is going to report on its own self-evident corruption? Or MSNBC is going to report on how the people from their Biden voter panel that were on their show days before went to NBC to pretend to be undecided voters that were handpicked by Joe Biden to begin with? You think they're going to report on it? The only legacy outlet that'll report on it, and here's the problem with a hyper-partisan climate, is Fox. But the average Fox viewer, they've made up their mind. They already support Trump, by and large. Of course, you've got some holdouts. You definitely have never-Trumpers now on the Fox network. They're declining, dwindling in relevance and popularity, I think. And Tucker Carlson basically holds up the whole fucking network at this point. He's basically like the younger and more cerebral version of Bill O'Reilly at this point. You know, hopefully minus the scandals. The allegations against him. You know, for legal reasons, we have to always use that term. Disclaimer, nothing was proven. It was all settled out of court before he got fired by his own network, despite being one of their heavy hitters. I wonder what could have possibly happened. This just shows, though, the dishonesty and corruption of the legacy media when you think about it. More than anything else, my ire at the left, or at Biden, or at the DNC, pales in comparison to my ire towards the corporate media. Because they're at least willing to pretend to be nonpartisan. Well, we're the press. Oh, we ask the hard questions. We don't softball Joe Biden. Yes, you do. At every possible opportunity. You'll ask Trump complex trigonometry, and then you ask Joe Biden what 1 + 2 is. That's basically how it works. And I don't even think that Biden fans are taken in by it. I think that they understand that there's a huge amount of rigging, corruption, and collusion going on. They just overlook it because they're Biden fans. Oh, yeah, they treat him a lot better than Trump. Well, but Orange Man bad, so it's okay, right? Your candidate hasn't even been vetted. Biden, fundamentally, is the first presidential candidate in a very long time. There have been others in the past, especially in the Gilded Era, the era of the yellow journalists. He's the first candidate in a very long time who fundamentally has not been vetted by the legacy media. This is my problem with it. If you want to support Joe Biden, that's fine. I disagree with you. I think he'll be terrible for the United States, and it'll be 4 years of stagnation if he wins. I think we'll enter a recession. My taxes will certainly skyrocket. That's not even in question, considering his economic proposals. You'll probably see a lockdown government after the first 2 years, because I expect that the Republicans will retake the House and Senate in the subsequent midterms if Biden is elected. So you'll see no progress. He'll be a disaster. He probably won't even last a term health-wise. He'll have to resign, or he might die in office, leaving you literally the first female president as an unelected official. I can't think of anything worse social alienation-wise for the nation. That being said, at the very least, if you support him, you think that he's the better candidate, or maybe you just fucking hate Trump, you should at least want Joe Biden to be vetted by the corporate media, by the people that are willing to ask hard questions of Trump. If he gives a presser, he is asked substantive questions over and over by the press. If he is asked questions, if Biden is asked questions by these same groups, he is softballed. The biggest example I can give you is an attempted hardball by Mika, actually, from the Morning Joe shtick. From MSNBC, if I remember correctly, from a legacy network that explicitly endorses Joe Biden in the most ultimate sense. not following through at all on her questioning about his Senate records. Asking Joe, well, your Senate records are locked here at the University of Delaware, and they're not releasing them. You should encourage them to release them. Oh, well, you can go to the National Archives and get my records. No, you can't. The National Archives literally had to fact-check the fucker the next day. They literally, imagine when you get fact-checked by the National Archives, but the least partisan possible institution within D.C. National Archives, of all people, smacking him down on that one. Mika asks a question. He explicitly doesn't answer. What does she do? She could follow through, but instead she just pivots to another subject. It was interesting. It shows Joe Biden doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about with record retention. It shows that he definitely doesn't want you to have his Senate records. I wonder fucking why. Could it be that Americans would reject him wholesale based on modern ethics? Based on the fact that he was basically, at times, even a right-leaning Dem back in the 70s and 80s? My goodness, if you could see his private conversations, I guarantee you all these fucking progressives would reject him. That's why they won't release his Senate records. It's not about Tara Reade. It's not about Me Too allegations. It's about his statements with regards probably to the gay community, probably about black people, because he was a 70s, Democrat at the time, 70s liberal. Probably things like that. He wouldn't be elected. He'd be way behind Trump if you had his Senate records. That's why they won't release him. Instead of pressing the issue because there was a legitimate concern and vetting the candidate like they're supposed to do, the entire corporate media shut the story down entirely. They won't even talk about it. Bring it up and see what happens. Fucking force the hashtag down Twitter's throat. See what happens. Not a single outlet will talk about it. Even Fox doesn't talk about it anymore. Why do you think that is? The fix is in as far as these people go. So I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that the Biden campaign, and you can't even blame Joe. Joe Biden might be a corrupt guy and a long-term politician who never accomplished anything for almost 5 decades, but he's not the one calling the shots. Kamala, by the way, isn't. She's the snippy, smirking, bracelet-jingling face that'll take the blame. She's the Dick Cheney of the ticket. Dick Cheney, great example. George W. called the shots, along with his unelected cabal of oil barons and war hawks, people like John McCain, basically, who is treated like a national hero by Democrats. He wasn't a hero. He was a corrupt crook and a war pig. And that's just the way that it is. And you said the same thing back in 2008, just to be clear. George W., along with his buddies, called the shots. But Dick Cheney looked the part. He looked kind of like the Penguin, didn't he? In the most literal sense. He probably could have played him on the silver screen. He looked like a villain. He sounded like a villain. He had the villainous ways where you could imagine him in the darkness behind a curtain staring out at Bush and laughing about him and, ha ha, we're going to start another war. You could imagine him in that role. So he got to take the blame and W played dumb. And so W didn't get removed from office despite Katrina, despite the failures in Iraq, despite the failures at Tora Bora and everything else under the sun. He would have gotten sacked if Dick Cheney hadn't taken the goddamn blame. And Ashcroft, I think, to a lesser extent. You've got the same thing now, only it's a little bit different. Because nobody thinks Biden is calling the shots. He really is out to lunch. It's not just a joke with him. Kamala's the one that'll take the blame. The oligarchs, the cabal behind the scenes will be the ones calling the shots. She'll be the acting president. She'll be the one actually using or not using the veto, appointing SCOTUS justices potentially. She'll be the one doing diplomacy, but the diplomacy will be fed to her as an empty vessel by other people. By billionaires. We already know who they are. They're all on board, pretty much every one of them. Billionaires, war pigs, a bunch of starched shirt generals that have never been on an actual battlefield who like to send other people off to die, Silicon Valley magnates, multinationalists, people from other countries will be influencing our political system on a level that we've never seen before. We've already seen how whole hog these people have gone nuts over the fact that Trump wants to cut a new trade deal with China. Why? Their investments are elsewhere. They don't have any loyalty to the United States. I always figured that our government should represent us. That's why I'll be voting for Trump. This doesn't surprise me even slightly. NBC, its parent firm is multinational. They have assets all over the place. They're not a U.S. firm. The entire corporate media, including Fox, by the way, for all of you Tucker Carlson fans. I know he might have libertarian leanings. Trust me, behind the scenes, he's just as controlled as the rest of them. It's controlled opposition. Get over it. These people don't have any loyalty to the US because their paycheck in part comes from other countries, from the EU, from China, from India and Russia and places like that. You want to talk about election interference by foreign entities, just look at the legacy media and who owns these fuckers. That's about all. Peace out.